Got some fan art for y'all before we get into the topic at hand. So let's say that you are in the middle of building a deck, and of course you got to get to the most important part of your deck, building the lands base. You don't like doing this part because you just want to chuck a whole bunch of temples and tap lands in there because they technically tap for all the mana that your deck wants, and then when you get into a game you wonder why you're playing like a turn or two behind everybody else, and it feels genuinely awful. What do you do about this? Well, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can go watch somebody else's deck tech video and look at the lands that they chose to use in their decks and put those in yours, but that might not work. Like, you might put something in your deck, like, say, an irrigated farmland, that's still a tap land, but the person whose deck tech you're copying was using something like a core cartographer to bring that out of the deck at an opportune time, and the cartographer was going to put it into play tapped anyway, so that tap part didn't really matter too much. But you throw it in anywho and then wonder, things still ain't looking quite right. Well, I have a resource for you, and this is going to be part of a series on sculpting your mana bases in your decks and the reasons why you would or would not use certain lands, partly because I think it's something that a lot of people could use. I've looked at a lot of people's decks over the years as I'm trying to, like, help sculpt theirs as I've gotten better at data management and learning how to build better, more consistent commander decks. And there's a consistent theme I've noticed, both in Wizards of the Coast's designing of commander decks and players' aptitude for building them. We tend to use the wrong lands a lot. So I spent about 3 days. It is one of the many reasons why I wasn't able to get content out as I wanted. I've spent the last 3.5, it's been technically a few more days now, sculpting a list, a curated and completely organized list of every worthwhile land in Magic the Gathering, not counting things that are obscenely costly, like original dual lands and Gaia's Cradle, stuff like that. For the most part, if I've missed anything, let me know. Give me your reasons why in the comment section below. But there's going to be a few videos out on these lands, on this list, talking about the various types of lands that I chose to put in there and why you would want to run them in a commander game. But let me go ahead and introduce you to the whole thing. This is a giant thing with 441 different lands, all from various points of Magic the Gathering's history, that I believe are worth running in commander decks. Also, yes, this was also an exercise I did to make sure that I had an easy access resource for me that would always have exactly what I wanted when I was deck building. Normally, I would go to Mana the Gathering, check out their website, but their website is not a curated website. It just has every land available to you, which is fine and helpful, but sometimes you actually just want stuff that has been culled from the chaff. You want wheat that is going to make your deck run. So the criteria for here are the lands do not come into play tapped, unless there is a bona fide benefit to them coming into play tapped. For instance, cards like Murmuring Bosk are in here because since they have the land type forest, they have the opportunity to be fetched out with cards like Nature's Lore. Now, there is one other caveat here. I wanted to make this as easily applicable of a list for anybody as possible, so any land that is very specific to a kindred tribe in Commander, I did not include here. If you want to find those, it's as easy as just typing in land and then putting in card description dragon or card description vampire. I don't think anybody needs help finding that stuff. When you're building a tribal deck, you're already going down this particular route. So type of lands are not included in here. So I identified about 20 lands in allied colors, and then in enemy colors, about 16 or 17 lands that I think are worth running for every single one. And they are all categorized in a couple of ways. The first way is obviously by the name of the color combination that can run them. So if you're looking on here, you're going to want to click Enable Tags, and then group how you want, but I tend to group by type and tag and then sort by price because I do a lot of budget builds, so I need to be able to go, okay, A port town is going to shave 11 cents off my deck. An irrigated farmland, I've got ways to get plains out, so that's going to be 11 cents. A bounce land, I've got an MDFC in here, that's going to be 11 cents, perfectly fine. Azorius Guildgate, 4 cents, but I don't want to run it because it comes into play tapped, and I'm not running a Gates base. Skycloud Expanse, 11 cents, I can do that. Prairie Stream, 13 cents, starting to get up in price, still perfectly reasonable. Idyllic Beachfront is 15 cents. Maybe you run that in your mana base. You might not want to if you don't have a way to fetch out a plains or island specifically, since the land itself cares about its typing. Otherwise, it's just, you know, a tap land. Getting up to cards like Glacial Fortress, now if we're building a $15 deck, this is a 44-cent land. Can you afford to put this in your deck as opposed to a spell that would do more? And that's where you start to run into problems when you're doing your deck building. But by having this list here and available for me, it makes it way easier for me to figure that stuff out. Also, sometimes some people, like me, get things wrong and put a volatile fjord in my Azorius lands for some reason. It's good to double check yourself. But if you scroll down as you go, Bant lands are also in here. The Suicide land, the Panorama, the Layer land, because layers I do actually think have a purpose in Magic as bounce lands. And then, of course, the Triome that is searchable. If you go further down the list and go all the way down past the sorting by color combination, you'll actually see the artifact lands in here. Every single artifact land that comes into play untapped or otherwise does something good, like, you know, being worth multiple colors, having a modular trigger attached to it, all of those are in here. Battle Bond lands, Bicycle lands, Bounce lands. All of the lands are now sorted by the type of land that they are, the type of function or the cycle that they are a part of. All of your dual searchable lands are right here, fast lands. And they will, if you have these sorted alphabetically on your Mox field, then you'll actually have them always as the second thing there. And at the very bottom, because thank God there is no other type of land that begins with something other than you, I actually have a ton of utility lands here as well that I've curated that I think are worth running for players. We've got utility lands that are completely sorted by their colors, all the monocolored ones. All the colorless ones are here as well. If it is a utility land that I think is worth running, I identified about 56 colorless ones that can go in basically anybody's deck. And then, with the exception of the Havenghoul Laboratory, because that card is actually black on its backside, and I completely forgot about that when I was building out this list. So we're going to go ahead and fix that one right now. This is going to be a living list as I get suggestions in the comment section below about stuff that might have been missed and why. As I find that there are areas in the list where I might have made mistakes, I will be updating the list as I go so that this can be a resource that everybody's got access to. And I have it set up the way I do because even though there are tons of these lists online, this is one that is now attached to my Mox Field account. When new things come out, I can put it in at my leisure. I can sort it the way I want, and I can use this in my deck building process for me, and why not go ahead and let that be available for everybody else as well. Utility lands that have dual color costs attached to them are here as well. Utility lands that are monocolored, if they are not already sorted into these colors, you can also find just a master list of monocolored ones here if you would prefer to look at them that way. But it is a huge, huge set of lands, and I am hoping that somebody other than me will end up finding it useful. I know that I've already had to use it a few times when I'm building decks because just it's way faster to sculpt a mana base when I'm not having to do it from memory. I can just go, in my list I can see that I've got these 7 lands that are all within my price range. I can go ahead and throw those all in right now, perfectly fine. And again, the only things that are not included are the lands that are just super, super expensive that I don't think anybody is running outside of CDH. And if you're running a CDH deck, you don't need a lands guide for building your deck. I'm sorry, you probably don't. But that's all for this one. I just wanted to show this off as a video and provide the link there, and then we'll start doing some videos going forward about each of the land choices that are in here, why they're there. I really want to do my video on MDFCs, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Hopefully you guys will like that. But these are every single land, for the most part, that I feel like is worth running in Commander. I hope the list is helpful for all of you. Check it out in the Moxfield link below. Make use of it. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Insert end of video tagline here.
Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, Sagitt, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.